After working with hundreds of clients, I've learned something that may surprise you. I've actually turned away more people than I've helped. And not because they couldn't afford our fee, and not because we couldn't actually help them with their retirement, but because hiring me would have been a waste of their time and money. In fact, hiring a financial advisor is a lot like a marriage. If your goals aren't aligned, it's likely to be expensive, painful, and end in a messy divorce. I've identified 5 specific personality types that, in my opinion, would be better off never hiring a financial advisor. And if you fall in one of these categories, then you're likely better off on your own. But there is one person who could see a massive benefit. So let's see if hiring an advisor is the right move for you, or if you're better off going solo. First up is high return Hank. Hank cares about just one thing: beating the stock market. He hires an advisor because he wants to outperform the S&P 500 every single year. And I'm afraid he'll always end up disappointed. And here's why Hank should not hire a financial advisor to plan his retirement. Retirement is a lot like climbing Mount Everest. The first half of your life is the climb up. That is the building phase. It requires muscle, aggression, and some risk taking. And that's what has made Hank rich. But retirement is more like the climb down from the mountain, and that is the preservation phase. The goal isn't to get down fast, the goal is to get down alive. And Hank is trying to sprint down the mountain because he, well, sprinted up it. And in my opinion, that's how you die on the mountain. Making beating the market your goal above all else often leads to making big bets that can cost hundreds of thousands in lost gains and even tax mistakes along the way. If you want to chase high returns, that's fine, but likely do it yourself. A good retirement planner is there to help you protect your wealth, not gamble it. If Hank rushes because of greed, this next personality rushes because of fear. Meet Rushed Rick. Maybe he just retired, or the market dropped, or his spouse passed away. Essentially, he wakes up one day with a huge sense of urgency. So he hires the first advisor he meets just to make the anxiety go away. This is a mistake. Hiring an advisor just because you're panicked is like getting knee surgery from the first doctor you find in the phone book. You wouldn't go to a general practitioner for a complex knee replacement. You would want a specialist. But Rick doesn't check for a specialty, he just wants it done. For example, I met with a man recently who had been unexpectedly laid off from his job. Fortunately, he was financially sound with robust savings and a solid severance package, but he wanted to hire someone immediately just to calm his nerves. I gently encouraged him to talk to other advisors first, not because we didn't want his business, but because people who tend to rush into something tend to rush out of it just as fast. And after exploring his options, he did end up working with us, but he chose so deliberately, not desperately. So my tip to the rush Ricks out there is, if you feel pressured, that is a sign you need to slow down. You can't build a 30-year plan in a 30-minute meeting. You need a guide who specializes in the descent. So if you're standing at the top of this mountain looking down at retirement and you want a guide who specializes in the path down, we can help. We've developed the Retirement Readiness Runway specifically for people who want to measure twice and cut once. If you want to see how soon you can start your dream retirement, click the link below in the description to book a call. Now, Hank and Rick both make decisions too quickly, one chasing returns, one running from fear, but our next personality has the opposite problem. Meet Frugal Frank. Frank has the money and means to pay for help, but he just flat out refuses to pay a fee. He thinks, why should I pay someone else when I can do it for free? And honestly, Frank might be right. If he doesn't see the value, he shouldn't pay the cost. But Frank needs to keep in mind the famous Warren Buffett quote: price is what you pay and value is what you get. And I experienced this myself recently. Last year, I wanted to finish my basement in my home, and I was tempted to do it myself and save money. After all, I'm no stranger to swinging a hammer, but after consulting my realistic wife, we decided to hire a contractor instead. And it wasn't cheap, but looking back, it was some of the best money I had spent all year. When I saw the unexpected electrical hurdles and the structural issues he had to solve, I realized something: that if I had done it myself, it would have probably taken 3 times as long, the quality would not have been as good, and after buying all the tools and making my own mistakes to learn, it likely wouldn't have been cheaper in the end. I paid a price for that contractor, but I got the speed and quality I wanted, which was the value. Now, Vanguard published a study estimating that a good advisor adds about 3% in net value through tax planning, coaching, and more services. Frank sees the price being the fee, but he misses the value, the potential tax savings, and the mistakes prevention. Therefore, if you're wired like Frank and will potentially lose sleep over the fee every night, you don't need to hire an advisor. You will surely resent that relationship. And while Frank won't pay for help because he questions the value, what about someone who genuinely enjoys doing this work themselves? I'll call them Resourceful Rachel. Now, Rachel is smart. She reads the tax code for fun. She has spreadsheets for her spreadsheets, and she has a Bolden retirement subscription and watches videos about navigating Roth conversions late into the night for fun. Rachel likely does not need a replacement. She is the CEO of her own life, and she's probably doing a great job. But here's my challenge to Rachel. Even the best CEOs out there don't scrub the floors and file the corporate taxes. They hire a COO, a chief operating officer, to handle the execution so they can focus on the vision. So, my tip to Rachel is don't hire an advisor to replace you, but consider partnering with a professional to help scale you. Think of it like an elite athlete. Tiger Woods knows how to swing a golf club, but he still has a swing coach. He isn't paying for ability, he's paying for a second set of eyes to spot the flaws he can't see himself. If you're a Rachel, you can handle the basics, but keep in mind that a strategic partnership might be the challenge partner you need to help you amplify the great work you're already doing. And now Rachel may not need help because she loves the challenge. This next persona doesn't think he needs help because he feels everything is fine. So let's meet comfortable Cameron. Cameron feels secure. He looks at his bank account and thinks, I'm not running out of money, so why do I need a plan? And he may very well be right. He may not go broke. But not going broke, in my opinion, is a very low bar for a successful life. And it doesn't do him justice for the decades he'd worked so hard just to get to this point of retirement. Therefore, Cameron's risk isn't bankruptcy, his risk is inefficiency. He might be paying, say, $10,000 more in taxes every year than he needs to. He may be leaving a mess for his heirs because his estate plan is outdated. He may be foregoing lifelong experiences with his family because he feels it's outside of his budget. Now, he feels safe today, but his wealth and potential is leaking through holes he can't see. And there was one experience that reminds me of this I will never forget. I was reviewing a retirement plan with a couple in their 80s, and their son had driven them to the meeting. During our discussion about required minimum distributions and the tax implications, the son went from being on his phone in the corner of the room to sitting up, leaning forward, and taking notes. He realized how his parents were now painted into a corner with limited options because they waited too long to plan strategically. So, after the meeting with his parents, he scheduled his own appointment. Not because he was panicking, he was just recognized that being comfortable today doesn't mean you won't have blind spots tomorrow. Cameron's confidence creates blind spots because when nothing feels wrong, you stop looking for what could be. My tip to a comfortable Cameron is you don't need a babysitter, but you should consider a stress test. Even a one-time opinion ensures you aren't overlooking a blind spot that could cost your family later. Now, we've covered 5 types of people who probably don't need an advisor. But there's one more personality, the person who could actually transform their retirement by working with the right partner. And I'll call them Calculated Charlie. Charlie has saved a substantial amount of money, typically between $2 and $4 million. But he realizes that his wealth is a double-edged sword. His mind tells him that he has enough money to cover his needs and his wants, and he knows he's done a good job saving for retirement. But his heart tells him there's too much complexity now. He knows the stakes are too high to figure out alone, and Charlie knows he only gets one shot to navigate retirement in his life, to get the taxes, the healthcare, and the income all lined up appropriately. He decides to partner with a specialist, not because he can't do it, but because he wants someone who navigates this path currently every day. Charlie measures twice, so he only has to cut once. People like Charlie aren't rare, they're rather thoughtful, successful, and wise enough to ask for backup when it matters most. And here's what happens when Charlie gets that strategic partner. He stops second-guessing every decision. He knows his plan accounts for healthcare costs before Medicare kicks in. He knows how much he needs to budget for taxes and retirement, and importantly, how inevitable market drops could impact his retirement plan. So he's not wondering if he's missing something because someone's already checked. And most importantly, he gives himself permission to actually live his retirement, to travel while his knees still work, to help his grandkids with college, to enjoy the wealth he spent decades building. Charlie doesn't retire with anxiety, but rather with clarity. And he doesn't want a stock picker, but rather a strategic partner. I realize I sound biased here, but I've personally worked with hundreds of people like Charlie. They're successful, they're serious, and they're looking for certainty around a massive decision. And I've seen the benefits that we've been able to help them to make life-changing decisions. Now, if this sounds like you and you're looking to make sure you're protecting your family's best interest with a plan that measures twice, click the link below or scan the QR code here on the screen. We can walk through the retirement readiness runway and see if we are the right partners for your retirement journey. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.